Welcome to 20 Minutes with Mike, brought to you by Legal Ease, the ultimate guide on how to survive a law practice. The Chastain Law Office of Gold River, California, and Barking Frogs, your best source for race swag. Go bigger and louder. Now here's your host, Mike Chastain.
Well, welcome to 20 Minutes with Mike. We're so pleased that you're joining us this morning or today. I have a great show, I think. We're going to be talking about change, the one thing that you can always count on. So let's get started. There's a famous quote. I'm sure most of you have heard it. In this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Uh, a number of different people said that, but when I looked it up, I was surprised to find out that that was written by Benjamin Franklin in a letter that he wrote. Um, Now, without getting too far afield, I'm not 100% sure that death and taxes are necessarily certainty. Certainly, death of this body, but on a spiritual sense, I'm not so sure that death exists. But that's another topic for another day. Um, what I would disagree with this statement, though, is that the one thing that I am absolutely certain about is that there will be change. You know, uh, over many years, I've been on this planet for 6 decades, and the one constant has been change. Whether it was when I was racing, doing adventure racing. I mean, you could always count on the idea that something was going to change. Someone was going to get sick, the weather was going to change. You didn't count on needing a certain piece of gear, or you forgot a piece of gear, or you dropped a piece of gear. All of these experiences have happened to me. One thing, as a trial lawyer, I am absolutely 100% certain of every time I go into a jury trial is that things will change. I don't care what's written in the police report. I don't care what people have said in other interviews. That's all important information to know. But the way it unfolds and the way that it is presented in front of the jury will be different than what everybody expects. Sometimes the differences are minor, but sometimes the differences can be very significant and can absolutely change the outcome. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've had success over the years before juries is that I stay light on my feet, and I understand that things are not etched in stone. This is not a pre-written script. And things will be different. People will change what they have to say, especially if large periods of time have passed since the event. So, change is the one a constant that I think that we see all the time. We've all experienced it in December of 2019. How many of you would have thought that we were going to go into some sort of lockdown, and that the world as we knew it was going to change so dramatically as a result of COVID? I certainly didn't know that. Nobody told me about it. Nobody was talking about it because I don't think anybody really knew. Or if if some people knew, they certainly didn't tell the rest of us. That caused a huge change in our lives, and I believe that we are on the cusp of another change, and that change is going back to what people are calling the new normal, right? um, Remote working as a new normal, for a lot of industries and a lot of businesses that it didn't exist before. I know in our office, we are grappling with the idea of how are we going to incorporate remote working. We never did remote working before. I mean, we kind of had the capacity, and if somebody was on vacation and we need to get a hold of them by phone, but I don't consider that remote working like we've been doing now. So now we do have the capacity. Now we are set up for it because we've been engaged in it. And so how are we going to incorporate that? Or are we going to incorporate it? I think that there's going to be other significant changes because there always are significant changes in the way things are going on. And then, that's kind of on the macro level. And then on the micro level, within our own selves. Um, there's changes that go on with the firm. People come, people go. We hire new employees leave, we expand. Sometimes we need to contract. Um, we get new technology. We use a different, website. There's always this constant flow. We had a big issue with our phone system, for example. We switched phone systems, and it turned out to be a nightmare for us. And now we're going back to the old system. But there's a transition that occurs each and every time. And the thing is, it can be incredibly frustrating, but you have to, you just got to learn to flow with that. So what I want to talk about today, really the whole point of this, because I would be very surprised if anybody disagreed with what I've said so far regarding, the fact that change is the one thing that you can really count on. But what I want to really talk about today is, well, how do you best prepare for change? How do you set yourself up in the, best possible way so that when change happens, you're prepared to deal with it? Because one of the interesting things about change is that the change is not always expected. You know that there's a change coming, but exactly how it's going to manifest itself, exactly what it's going to look like, exactly the form it's going to come in, you may not know. So unless you've got a better crystal ball than I do, I know that change is coming. I just don't know exactly what it will be. So I'm gonna, I had some thoughts about this, and let me lay out some of those thoughts that might be helpful to you as you see the change coming. So, my first recommendation is to have a good base of knowledge. The more you know about things, the better you will be able to react in a affirmative way. You won't be so far behind the eight ball. And how do you have a good base of knowledge? Well, let me tell you the things I don't think you should be doing. And I've talked about this at length. Watching the news, yeah, you need to kind of see trends are going on, but to be too far engaged in all of that, he said, she said, they're like this, they do this, all of that political bickering that goes back and forth, to me, that's a complete waste of time. It's just a real negative thing. Uh, what I'm really referring to is reading. You should be, in my opinion, you should be reading every day. You should read a minimum of 15 minutes a day. It's part of my normal routine. And you should be reading books that interest you and inspire you, but also talk about things that uh, are somewhat predictive. So I'm reading a book right now called um, Catching the Fire. It's not Catching the Fire. I'm sorry. It is. What did I do with it? I put it down. Up, sorry. Not as prepared. Stealing Fire. That's it. Stealing Fire. I'm sorry. I kept wanting to say Catching Fire. I kept thinking of the Mockingbird book. Sorry about that. And even this is a really interesting book about how to get into a flow state. And I don't want to, I'm maybe a quarter of the way through it, so I'm still grasping it. But basically, the bottom line of this book, as I'm understanding it, is that one is the most productive when you're in some sort of flow state, when you're kind of shutting down parts of your mind so that other parts of your mind will open up. And how do you do that? And some really great ideas in here. And of course, one of them, which was no surprise to me, is meditation. meditate, it's not a meditation book, but it talks about how using meditation can help get you in a flow state. And I'll tell you, I've been in flow states before, especially through athletics. Um, when I was really fit and younger, and I'd go out on a run, I might go out on a 10-mile run, and it was done in a blink of an eye, and it was effortless. And um, I had all these endorphins running through me, and it felt really good, even though I was flying down the road. I was running, fast, and I was just in the moment. And so it was uh, just a phenomenal experience. Um, I get into the flow sometimes at work when I'm just hyper focused on something. So anyway, a really interesting book. But books like that, I've got another book, Business Made Simple. We've been running a business for a long time, but continuing to add to that database, to the knowledge, to um, uh, run a business maybe more effectively, more efficiently. And you just can't have too much information. So good base of knowledge, and that is in my opinion, you never stop learning. The minute you stop learning is when you start dying. So a good base of knowledge, and you should be reading. The second thing, in my opinion, is you got to be flexible with your thinking. I mean, it was funny because I wrote these notes out, and then this morning, as I was reading Stealing Fire, it talked about um, real epiphanies coming when you have the ability to hold two conflicting ideas in your mind at the same time. And you know there's not nearly enough time to really delve into that, but the idea that you can't be rigid in your thinking. It's this way, and this is the only way. You have to be open to other uh, ideas and other thoughts, so that when change does come, right, when change does come, you can consider it and go, well, is this good or is this bad? Do we need to modify, or do we need to stand firm? So, if you think about it like from a stock market perspective, a report comes out, a stock goes up. Do you buy? Do you sell? Or do you stay pat? Or the stock drops. Usually, when the stocks go up, people don't panic too much. But what if a stock drops? Well, what if all of a sudden, there's a precipitous drop in Apple? You got a bunch of Apple, and there's a precipitous drop. Well, you know, you need to figure out, well, why did that happen? Is it just one of the things that happen in the stock market? Things go up or down. You got to be flexible in your thinking, and try to think outside the box, because that allows you to be flexible when change does occur. Um, Next suggestion: travel light. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, um, a lot of us have baggage. We all have some baggage. My friend Jim Kaspari and I last night were playing music, as we often do, and we were playing a song called "Suitcase" by Kep Mo. And if you've never heard it, it's a great blues tune. But basically, the whole song's about this guy's baggage, and he refers to it as the suitcases that he's hauling around, all the bags that he's hauling around, the emotional baggage, the grudges, and um, uh, the anger that we all have to a certain extent. And so, the ability that you can let that go, forgive and forget, let go of any grudges, um, do your best to let go of emotional issues. If you're angry with somebody, try to reconcile it, because all of that stuff gets in your way of being flexible, and it becomes more apparent when change occurs, at least in my opinion. So, uh, travel in light. I think allows you to travel faster, allows you to change course a lot faster. I certainly learned that when I was adventure racing, right? And I've talked about that before. Is the lighter you can travel, the faster you can go. And if speed matters, then getting rid of the baggage, getting rid of all the what ifs, and all the things that you're like, I'm still mad about, when I was in fifth grade, Johnny stole my lunch money. If you're carrying that kind of baggage with you, you really do need to figure out a way to get rid of it, because that will stand in your way. Travel light. Plan ahead. So, sometimes you can see trends coming. Sometimes you can see things that are going to happen. Let's say you're thinking about changing careers, but you're not necessarily, going to change it today, but you might want to be thinking about, in the future. Maybe you're about to become an empty nester. Maybe you've got kids, and now, your kids are all out of high school and they're heading off to college and they're doing the things. Well, that's a huge change in people's lives. What are you going to do about it? And are you going to stay in the big old house that you still have with 3 empty bedrooms, or are you going to downsize, or are you going to buy a Winnebago and travel around the world, around the country, or are you going to travel around the world and go see the pyramids? I mean, these kinds of things require some planning. Right. So when you see change coming, not all change is external, right? Some change is internal, in that it's happening in your little sphere, family leaving. Have you planned ahead? Have you planned for, the unfortunate demise of your parents? Have you planned for, your own demise, to take care of your family and your kids? I mean, these are, again, changes, right? And so, the by planning ahead, and I don't mean to be morbid about it, but have you given some thought to what will happen if certain scenarios occur, certain scenarios that may or may not happen? What would you do in that circumstance? And some of that planning can be really, really fun. Like, I'm going to retire and I'm going to close down my law practice. If that was a scenario, then that would require a lot of planning ahead. Adapt. You gotta adapt. When things happen, and this is kind of the cousin to flexible thinking, but you got to be willing to adapt. Okay, we are going to work remotely. We don't have a choice anymore. That was, at least that was last year. We're slowly coming out of that. Now we have a choice whether we're going to work remotely. But there was a period of time we didn't have a choice. We couldn't go to court. We couldn't go to restaurants. We couldn't do a lot of things, and we had to adapt. And some people adapted well, and some people didn't. Again, it's part of flexible thinking. Be willing to adapt. And then the final thing that I would say is accept responsibility. Accept responsibility for your conduct. Accept responsibility for where you are, what your station in life is at the moment, your financial situation, your relationship with your spouse, your kids, your family, your friends. Accept responsibility, because it's only when you accept responsibility that you can actually do the other things of being flexible, traveling light, planning ahead, adapting. If you don't accept responsibility, if you are just a victim to the entire world, then how can you do anything except for just get blown around? Continue to be victimized. So accepting responsibility doesn't mean that you're at fault. It just is accepting responsibility for where you are, because accepting responsibility includes taking credit for, if you're in a good financial situation, if you're, in a happy place, and you're in a home that you like, and you're in a job that you like, you should accept responsibility for that. That didn't just happen. That happened, that occurred because you put it in place. All right, guys. Change is coming. It happens every single day. It happens every single year. I just think this topic came to me because I see that there's quite a bit of change occurring. We are reopening the economy. that's such a great thing. And now I've got to make some decisions about how I run my business and how I run my life. And that's what caused me to think, well, if there's change coming, then we've got to make some decisions about how we are going to go forward. And um, uh, you know I'm trying to have a good base of knowledge. I'm trying to be flexible in my thinking. I'm trying to travel light, plan ahead, adapt, and absolutely accept responsibility. So you heard the buzzer. That's 20 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you found this helpful. I think that if you just take a moment and step back, you realize that change can be a really good thing if you adapt to it and embrace it. So everybody, I hope you all have a great week. I'm looking forward to another show next week. And just remember, be grateful for what you have and be willing to accept. Let's start that over. Be grateful for what you have. Take responsibility for what you have, but be willing to work for what you want. All right, everybody. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Take care.